I had a friend named Tom Vickers who lived in San Francisco, and I forget how we met exactly, but he grew up in Marblehead, which is a suburb of Boston, and he had this friend named Skip Curley, who was a charming ne'er-do-well, and we used to hang out a lot, and Tom was really into black music, and it was so wonderful to know somebody in the 70s who was into black music, because that was the height of the, disco sucks, which I always interpreted as niggers suck, because there was just so much racism in rock music, rock being the stuff without the roll in it. And Tom was, he was finding stuff that I'd never heard, or we were both on record company mailing lists, and he would play some stuff way earlier than I would tend to, and he'd get on the phone and he goes, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, have you heard this new record? This singer they've got now, Teddy Pendergrass, man, listen to this. Listen to this record right now. Hang up and go listen to this record. So one day I was over at his house and we're hanging out, and he says, oh, I just found the coolest record ever. I said, what's this? And he says, it's called Stretching Out with Bootsy's Rubber Band. I said, I just sold that. It's the bass player from Funkadelic, which is some goth rock black band I've never listened to. He goes, you idiot. And he goes over and he puts the thing on, and Skip walks in there and goes, Tom, what's that? Tom says, sit down, Skipper, you're going to love this. So he throws the thing on, and we're standing there, I'm just like, this is amazing. This is like, what is it with this? And Skip looks up and he goes, Tom, this is New Heights and stupid. So I went home and I got another copy of the record and I listened to it. I called up Bob Christgau at The Voice and I said, this is it, man. This is it. I got a new thing that I really want to write about. So I did write about it, and I quoted Skip in the article. And shortly after the Voice review came out, I got a call from George Clinton, who was the leader of Parliament Funkadelic and one of the people who was involved in Bootsy's album, and he said, man, you got it. I just want to thank you. Stupid. Stupid's not dumb. Stupid's not thinking. It's just getting out there and doing it. And being stupid is the highest thing that we can do. And you got it, man. I said, well, actually it was Skip, but I wound up agreeing with Skip, so I'll pass the compliments along. So Tom was just like, wow, you talked to George Clinton? Oh man, what? But they were playing in Oakland. And so Tom went to Rolling Stone. He says, I got this band I want to write about. So, okay, they gave him an assignment. Tom went off to interview George. And they talked for 3 hours. And George was talking about how frustrated he was that as influenced as he had been by the white rock scene, the MC5, the Stooges in Detroit, while he was waiting to get a deal with Motown, which never happened, he couldn't get white people interested in Funkadelic. And yet here was Tom, and here was Skip, and here was me. And we were clearly into it. He says, what's going on here? And Tom goes, because Tom is never shy about telling you what you're doing wrong. He's gone, well, George, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should do this other thing. You should talk to these people, and you should do that. And George listens to him and goes, nah, man, I don't want to do any of that shit. Why don't you do it? I'll give you 35 grand a year. And Tom goes, okay. So suddenly Tom moves to Los Angeles and he becomes the publicist for this unwieldy crew of colored people, and was just having wacky fun at all times. It was just the ideal job for him. One of the record labels that they were, because George divided the band up into sub-bands with their own names, so there was a record out at all times under somebody's name, Bootsy or Parliament or Funkadelic or something. He all had different record deals for all this. It was sort of a business genius in those days. So, but Parliament was the big money maker. They were the ones who had the disco hits and all that kind of stuff. And they were signed to this record label called Casablanca, which was awash in cocaine and cash. Much of it maybe not of the cleanest variety. So Tom's whole deal was, anytime I could get a story on any member of the P-Funk family, he could get money from Casablanca to fly us somewhere. So when the family went out on tour one time, Tom calls and he goes, you gotta do this tour with us, man. Because we're finishing up in Washington, D.C., which had historically been the biggest fan base, because all the black universities there. See, it's black college kids who were mostly into this before it became a pop hit. So he said, you got to do this. We go to Hollywood, Florida, and then we go to North Carolina, and then we go to Savannah, and then, I said, oh, it sounds like great fun. So I scanned a story, and we got on the plane. I got on the plane in San Francisco, and I discovered I was in first class, and Tom gets on the plane in LA. He goes, do I take care of my friends or what? And then we flew to Hollywood, Florida, and we did the shows, and we flew, and then here we were in Atlanta trying to get to Savannah, and it was raining like crazy, and it's not a very far distance, and I don't like flying, and I especially don't like flying when there's lightning all over the place. I said, Tom, why don't we rent a car? It'll take, instead of the 30-minute flight, it'll take us an hour and a half to drive. So, why don't we just do that? He goes, yeah, sure, okay, fine. So we go to the rent-a-car counter, and there is a problem. There's these two guys standing there, and they're just not getting done what they need to do. Tom's going, geez, we're going to be so late. Geez, what is the problem here? And finally, the big guy steps out of the way, and there's this little guy who walks up to the counter. He goes, do you know who I am? James Brown. You know who I am. I want my Cadillac. You have the purple Cadillac reserved for me at all times. Now what's the problem? And the guy's going, sir, your credit card's not going through, and I don't know what the problem is. Certainly you are James Brown, and certainly you should be good for this small amount of money, but sir, I can't authorize this without the... Call somebody! Do you know who you are delaying here? I'm James Brown! And Tom's going, oh, God is in the room. I'll put up my credit card. Right at that moment, something happens, and the guy goes, sir, I have clearance on your car. He goes, the purple Cadillac, right? He says, yes, sir, your purple Cadillac is waiting. He goes, come on, let's go. And Tom goes, nothing else is going to happen on this tour is going to be that cool. I just can't believe it. It was a great moment in show business history, performed for us exclusively in the Atlanta airport.